Blake Middleton said, I already know what this day in history is, and he's right. I'm not going to say more than that, but he's been looking ahead to see what is this day in history. We're live from Studio B on this Friday, the 27th of June, our last Friday show in June. Co-host Julia Vedekint, representing the St. Francis Yacht Club. I'm your host, Tom Eamon, representing the Balboa Yacht Club, to which I shall fly immediately after this show because we are going to do live television tomorrow and Sunday for the Rose Cup.
Yay!
The U.S. Youth Match Racing Championship, the national championship, and I hope you can join us for that. We'll tell you a little bit more about that in due course. Julia, I trust you're well.
I am.
A lot of people checking in. Greg Phillips from the Gold Coast of Oz, where it's only 06:01. Ed Worley, I believe, is up here in NorCal. Pedro Foiling Sailor somewhere in Europe. Peter Taylor, New York City. Mark Holland. Finally, the heat in Boston is broken. Now the only thing broken is the deed of gift. Well, you can say that again. Mm-hmm. It's not the deed of gift that's broken. It's the lack of a protocol. And Blake Middleton, as usual, the first one on, saying cheers from the land of 10,000 lakes, which, Julia, as you know, is the great state of Minnesota. Indeed it is. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the show. Our show number, what is it? 846 for today.
846 sounds like a good number.
It is. 864 would even be better. Friday. Happy Friday and World Levantine Alcoholic Drink Day. Julie, any idea what that is?
I don't.
Levantine Drink Day. It's a world day. FOSI Focus, we're going from Lake Carlisle in southern Illinois to Rhode Island Sound out toward Cuddly Hunk and to Austria.
Wow.
In Europe for our FOSI Focus today. Rest in peace. We'll do a nice tribute to a superb guy, to Hugh Treharne, who is one of the best guys in the sport, in the modern history of the sport. He was the tactician for Australia 2 when they lifted the cup from New York Yacht Club in 1983.
Good guy.
Hugh Treharne died peacefully here the other day. Bravo, Zulu. No surprise, Christian Zugel's Choose 2 won the Transatlantic at least line honors, and we'll tell you more about that. Coaching Corner, John Emmett, as always. He's today talking about the pros and cons of stadium sailing. Then we'll have SI, Sailing Illustrated News briefs from LA28, that continuing venue insanity, SailGP's 2026 schedule, Block Island Race Week, and Keeler Woche. We have reports from all of those events, and AC38, of course, our feature today. What's the assignment and acceptance document, and why is it Royal New Zealand Yacht Squadron's and Grant Dalton's worst nightmare, and more? We'll tell you the latest. We've got the scoop that no one else has. In fact, I heard from Richard Gladwell this morning when he woke up down in Auckland saying, what's going on? What's going on? And he has some insight to share
I'm sure he does.
Well.
Yeah.
And our usual This Day in History, Whiskey Tango Foxtrot, and a fantastic FOSI. Plus, I skipped over. We have a terrific last leg thanks to Christine Gribben and Jeffrey Peterson, who I pinged this morning. And they both came back with input for the show. Jeffrey Peterson put a camera up in front of his face. I described to him in 20 seconds, could you do a video for us? And I think he may even be a little dusty, our FOSI Jeffrey Peterson.
He said he was.
He put his, well, he didn't say it on the camera.
Oh.
But he put the video camera up and he shot one take, just a fabulous 90-second video for us from the Rose Cup down at Balboa Yacht Club. And we'll run that in the last leg. Julia?
Sir.
That's our feature today. What is this document? The assignment acceptance. And why is paragraph 4 about to become the worst nightmare for Grant Dalton?
I'd love to find out.
We'll tell you all about that in a moment. In the meantime, the FOSI Focus for today. Cool people, friends of Sailing Illustrated. And the first, as promised on Tuesday's show, is from Clark Chapin.
Uh-huh.
And you recognize the other gentleman?
Chip Merlin.
Exactly. Chip Merlin, and they're both at the Flying Scot. Some call it the Flying Squatini. Some call it the Flying Sidewalk, but they're at the Flying Scot North American Championship at Lake Carlisle in southern Illinois, a great reservoir, a nice place to sail. Clark is on the jury, or maybe chairman of the jury, I'm not sure which. Mm-hmm. And you'll remember that Chip was on the show not too long ago.
Right.
And he is racing a Flying Scot, as he has been doing for many, many years.
I remember that.
And I met him at a Flying Scott Midwinter Championship back in the 70s,
Right.
apparently. And that picture from the two of them was taken by another FOSI, Dave Chapin. David Chapin grew up in Springfield, Illinois, but now lives, and he's a bit of a real estate mogul now in South Florida. And he is a superb sailor. I met him sailing Sunfish back in the 70s.
Wow.
And he's a great sailor, and he's also there at the Flying Scott North America. This event, people make fun of this 19-foot bathtub of a boat designed by Gordon Douglas, who also designed the Thistle and the Highlander and International 14s of acclaim. They all look the same, basically. But the Flying Scott has taken hold, and there are some 6,000 of those around the U.S., mostly in the Midwest and Northeast. And it's a great family boat. It's a great club boat. And they've got something like 75 boats there at the North Americans yet again.
What's so special about them? Easy to sail, easy to maintain.
They're hard to sail. They're hard to sail fast. They're easy to sail, but they're hard to sail fast.
Yeah.
They are big bathtubs that are very stable. You can famously stand on the side of the boat, hold on to the side stay, lean out over the side of the boat, and it barely kind of heels over. So it's very stable.
Oh, that's nice.
It goes okay in light air.
Yeah.
And it's easy to sail in a breeze. It's got a spinnaker and a main and a jib, 19 feet,
great.
so it can be sailed by two people, a couple, or it can be sailed by three people, or, even four people. You stick a couple kids in it.
Not one.
Well, I used to sail it with another adult and usually a kind of 90-pound kid, so it gets, gets family sailing going.
Right.
There's a robust family, husband-wife championship, and they've got Masters trophies. And it's just one of these classes that's been around since 1950. Tell me what, 8. So it's a popular class, and people like Clark and Chip and Dave Chapin and many others are there sailing as we speak. Speaking of Masters and women's, I mentioned female. They also have the top female skipper perpetuals. Those are trophies donated by my home club in Michigan. And Clark got there and noticed that they're filled up. Both of them are nearly so. Mm-hmm. And he pinged us and the Flying Scott Fleet 20 at my home club and said, hey, we need to, what can we do? Get some money together and refurbish these trophies. And that is happening. They are doing exactly that.
Great.
It's people like Clark Chapin who make this sport better for all of us.
In many ways.
Indeed, in many ways. And Clark is going to get those trophies fixed, courtesy of our Fleet 20 at Portage Yacht Club in Michigan. And we'll continue to have a master skipper, John Emmett will be proud, and a top female skipper, perpetual trophies in the Flying Scott class. Speaking of Rhode Island Sound, do you recognize this yacht, Julia? But you can guess who is sailing from Newport to Cutty Hunk.
Oh, yes.
Vice Commodore Claire Harrington is on her yacht Magic, sent this photo and said, that is my office for today. I'll try to catch the show live. If not the initial part, she thought she would be there in time to watch it, the latter stages of the show. She is on her yacht Magic, motoring because there's an easterly, apparently. There's breeze on her nose, so they're motoring toward the Elizabeth Islands. Cutty Hunk, as we call it, which is the westernmost of that chain of islands. Then you get in Martha's Vineyard, Nantucket, and so on. And we used to call it Cuddly Hunk because we used to race our J24s out to Cutty Hunk from Newport.
Yeah,
which is it's a day-long sail. And we used to go out with 2 or 3 people. No VHF, we had VHF radios, but we didn't have GPS. And if it was foggy, you had to listen for the foghorns to kind of navigate. And Cuddly Hunk, we'd get out there and have a nice party, and you'd cuddle with your partner down in the J24.
Sounds great idea.
Well, you mean cuddling?
Yes.
You are something else, Julia.
I think that her boat looks just fabulous.
It's a great boat. I've not been aboard, but I've seen so many pictures of it by now. And Vice Commodore Harrington, or CTB, Claire the Brilliant, as Magnus calls her, is en route from Newport to Cutty Hunk and then eventually to Martha's Vineyard, where she has a home, and she's a past Commodore of one of the yacht clubs there on Martha's Vineyard. Finally, we could have what I might have called Alistair's awesome Austrian anecdote.
Oh, my goodness.
He's doing his European tour here in our Northern Hemisphere summer and sent a couple photos along. And they're having a great time, nice weather, enjoying the food. Of course, Austria is fabulous.
Yes.
Vienna and the music and the food.
Yes, absolutely.
The people are German without a sense of humor. As if the Germans have a sense of humor. I can say that being part German and having lived there for 20 years, or 10 years rather. And I love Austria, and the Formula One days was a good event. And Alistair sent this. No kangaroos in Austria.
We're glad to know that.
Apparently a T-shirt that he saw somewhere in a tourist stand. What are we celebrating today, Julia?
Gosh, I wish I knew.
Remember at the top I said about the Levantine drink?
Yes.
You know, you would think the Middle East would get along because Israel, Lebanon, and other countries all celebrate this drink and all drink it. It's kind of their national drink. I had no idea. And it's called Arak. Arak. I'm not sure how to pronounce it. Raise your glass and discover a Middle Eastern delight that packs a punch. This vibrant spirit will transport your taste buds on a delicious adventure. This drink has roots in the Middle East that date back several hundred years, all the way back to the 12th century. But even with its ancient spirit, Arak continues to have a modern appeal. It's considered to be a national drink of the country of Lebanon, as well as other nations such as Israel, Egypt, Syria, Palestine, and Jordan. The drink offers a flavor and aroma that is unmistakable. It is strong, too. It's like 50% alcohol. No wonder those people can't get along.
I was just thinking, all we have to do is supply them all with Arak.
Maybe. In fact, some historians believe that Arak, I'm not sure. Arak, maybe, was one of the first flavored spirits that was ever created. Made by extracting anise seeds into grape brandy, the drink is extremely simple and pure without any additives or other flavors to complicate it. And of course, I had to get a video or you'd think poorly of me.
Yes, indeed.
And this from Australia, believe it or not, this video.
Yeah.
I have absolutely no idea what Arak is. To be honest, when I first heard the name of it, I thought of the country. I'm told that this is like a major iconic drink in a lot of Middle Eastern countries.
This is clear. Yeah. I don't like that. It reminds me of moonshine.
50% alcohol.
That's a really little bottle to contain 20 standard drinks.
That's a lot.
So for Caitlin, someone who doesn't drink often, this is gonna suck.
It smells like black licorice.
We go 1/3 Arak and then 2/3 water.
Like, I don't get the whole water thing. Like, can you not just drink it straight? Whoa, it's like a weird...
Is that milk?
You know, dishwashing water.
I don't like that. It makes me feel like there's something going on in there.
All right, cheers. Bottoms up.
Oh, it's fine.
No, it's quite nice.
Oh, it gets you.
The first initial taste is like really strong, and then it's great.
It kind of reminds me of like an ouzo or grappa.
I would say that's straight up Galliano.
It's definitely an I'm getting drunk drink.
You can definitely taste the alcohol in this, but it's not overpowering, which doesn't really make sense because there's about 50 drinks in that.
That totally makes sense now why we had to add water.
This can be dangerous.
Doesn't even feel alcoholic. It feels like cordial that's meant to taste like licorice.
A long, never-ending shot of I want to go home now, please.
I came in thinking I'll be drinking the most ghastly drink ever, but it was great.
I don't think I'd be bringing this out every weekend. Not at all.
I'm feeling a buzz.
This is the prime drink you can sneak into a music festival.
Yeah, just say it's like fancy water.
This is probably up there with one of the strongest drinks I've ever had.
This right here is everything I want in a drink. It's easy to go down, it's alcoholic as hell, and it's refreshing. Great job, guys. Love it.
So they drink this in the Middle East.
BuzzFeed
Yes,
Australia.
Arak.
Yep.
You know, you have to. No wonder those people can't get along in the Middle East. They get drunk on this
love
stuff, and then
this.
they're in a fight mode, Julia.
I think that you should party with it.
Well, it's Rick Banner. If you like Good and Plenty, you'll like Arak. How'd we decide to pronounce that? Arak? And you are dead to me. David James says it's like Pernod, but not good. Pernod? How do you say
Pernod.
That? Pernod. Chris actually says it behaves like ouzo when you pour the water in it. Yeah, I guess it gets cloudy. Hamish was asking ouzo, and then the kids said that on the video. And Chris actually sums it up nicely. More Arak, fewer bombs and missiles. Denise Peterson also helped us with our final leg segment today. She's checking in from Annapolis. And many, many others. Joe Holtzman up in Colorado, Larry Kennedy in the FIDI in New York City, and Larry and our another FOSI, Peter Taylor, are going to be running the ILCA Nationals, I believe it is, out at, tell me what, out at the Sewanaka Corinthian Yacht Club, I think, out near Oak Cliff this weekend. So they're busy. A lot of people on here are contributors to our sport in a major way, giving back like Clark Chapin does regularly and like many others of you do. Bravo Zulu to all of you. Especially, go ahead.
No, I just said absolutely.
Especially those who support us via patreon.com/join/Sailing Illustrated. Without you, we wouldn't have a studio. We wouldn't have all this equipment, Julia.
Right.
We wouldn't be able to pay our stream. I paid our streaming fees. That's the last week of the month.
Good.
And they keep creeping up. So thank you for your support. We're deeply appreciative to all of you. Program note, Julia.
Yes.
We have no shows the next 2 Fridays. That's the summary of this slide. I put a lot of information on here. Next Tuesday, we'll do our regular show. I'll be back from SoCal by then. And then Friday, no show. It's Independence Day here in the USA. I'm headed to Michigan for the 4th of July. Go back with the family, and we'll see Clark Chapin. In fact, we'll do a show from Michigan on Tuesday the 8th from my home Portage Yacht Club and see what's going on, who will get involved. No doubt Clark will come out and sit with us. Friday, no show because I'm traveling back here to the Beach Street Yacht Club. So no show the next 2 Fridays, the 4th and the 11th of July. Then our regular schedule through the rest of July. And then the last week of July down again at Balboa Yacht Club for the Gov Cup. And we'll be live with 10 shows down there in 6 days as usual. Morning shows, press conferences, live shows from the water. It's a terrific event. We've been doing that for, 10 plus years now. Mm-hmm. And we'll do that the last week of July going into August from Balboa Yacht Club.
The live from water shots are really good always.
Well, I like the way we do it.
Yeah.
Chris Bretschker, our executive producer, gets us out on the water on his family. It's all volunteer.
Right.
Claire Harrington keeps saying, really? It's all this whole TV team of 25 people is all volunteer?
Yes.
And we get out there on a 40-something, 50-foot boat that belongs to Chris Bretschker's parents. He gets the thing all wired up. We're out on the water the way P.J. Montgomery used to do the America's Cup back in the day, not in a sound booth in a studio someplace in London. We do it out on the water where we can see the wind shifts. We can see what's going on. We talk to the race committee. We can talk to the sailors when they come by. Rose Cup this weekend. We'll be live tomorrow and Sunday at 11:30, and then we'll be back down there in a month for the Gov Cup. All shows, our shows, this is continuing, wrapping up our side. As always, our shows are at 1300 Pacific, 1600 Eastern, which this time of year is 2000 UTC. I'm not trying to tease all of you and keep this segment to later in the show, but I've got people who have asked, would you please hold it a little later in the show? We want to see it live, not have to watch it in replay. So it's going to lead the C block, but let's get into the B block now. I'm not trying to, again, push you all or tease you all with this, but some sad news. Hugh Treharne, who was he's a Hall of Famer in the Australian. In fact, one of the original inductees in the Australian Sailing Hall of Fame, died peacefully, surrounded by his loving family, 3 days ago in Sydney. Treharne passed away after a long illness at age 84. One of the great gentlemen, one of the great sailors in the modern history of our sport. He was best recognized for his role as tactician. Many credit him with winning the Cup more so than anybody else on that yacht, including John Bertrand. He was the tactician aboard Australia 2 during its historic 1983 America's Cup victory, where he played an instrumental role in one of the most iconic moments in Australian sporting, in our sports history, in fact.
Yeah.
That triumph not only ended the New York Yacht Club's 132-year winning streak, but also elevated sailing to the national stage and inspired a generation of Australians, some would argue still is inspiring yet another generation of Australian sailors. It was this moment, as many of you will recognize, on the 26th of September, 1983, when Australia 2 took the lead on leg 5 of 6 on the downwind leg of that old-fashioned Olympic course. Triangle windward, leeward, windward. And it was that Carlo Berlenghi shot. Others were up in the helicopter with him, but I believe this was a Carlo shot that marked the moment that changed everything in the America's Cup and our beloved sport in the last century. There they are crossing the finish line just ahead. We showed that picture a few days ago, that image, by, guess who? That image. Our dear friend, Daniel Forster.
Yeah.
The clockmaker from Switzerland, originally now lives in Jamestown in Newport, Rhode Island, over there on Connecticut Island. Fabulous photo. There is Australia 2 right after they finished and won 4-3 against Liberty and Dennis Conner on the 29th of September. And many would argue, as me as well, that Hugh Treharne, as the tactician, the gentle giant that he was, along with John Longley, who was the mainsail trimmer, those two guys had a lot to do with the success of that team. And Longley was also the project manager, but it was Huey Treharne who got John Bertrand around the course, and John JB got the boat quickly around the course. You got to give JB a lot of credit as well as their design team, and of course the leader of the pack, the two leaders of the pack, Alan Bond and Warren Jones, who was the executive director. Back at home, Treharne brought an extraordinary depth of knowledge, calm leadership, and tactical brilliance to every campaign he touched. Australian Sailing Federation had these words and more about him. His work across Olympic classes, offshore racing, and elite coaching further solidified his standing as one of Australia's most respected yachting minds. Hugh Treharne, 1940 to 2025, may he rest in peace. Sad, but it was great to know him. I didn't know him well, but I did know him, and I know his family. Bobby Wilmot is a dear friend, and he's part of that clan as well, and it's just a great big sailing family in Australia. Cool people, Julia.
Yes.
Bravo Zulu, next in line here. Bravo Zulu, well done in praise of performance. And guess who? And guess what? That's last Wednesday, a week ago Wednesday at Castle Hill in Newport, Rhode Island, when we had the New York Yacht Club Race Committee up here, including, there's Commodore Harrington, our super FOSI, right there with two radios in her hands. She's talking both to her race committee out on the water as well as the yachts, two different channels. And they started what is, of course, the Transatlantic Race 2025, the Royal Yacht Squadron, the New York Yacht Club, the Royal Ocean Racing Club, and the Storm Trysail Club are the host sponsors of that event. And the winner, as we predicted, and to the surprise of absolutely no one, is the VO70 Tschüss, which again in German means kind of hugs and kisses.
Yeah.
So long, farewell.
Cheers.
Auf Wiedersehen, goodbye.
I've always said it was cheers.
Juicy.
Cheers.
Yeah, cheers, goodbye. Christian Zugel, who's an American, his VO70, and they are the first to finish, and they may be winning the ORC division, whatever it is, 0 or whatever overall, in the New York Yacht Clubs and the Royal Ocean Racing Clubs event. A terrific regatta, terrific 11 starts in that race. It's a long race. Here they are powering towards the finish line off the Royal Yacht Squadron. The finish, as we told you the other day, was actually at the Lizard, and then they continued to race into the Solent and finished off the starting line off the Royal Yacht Squadron Castle there, just for good, even though the record was taken out at the Lizard, because that's the history and tradition of this race, from Newport to the Lizard.
That's a happy crew.
There is indeed a happy crew, and we like to name not only the owner, but we like to name the crew members. Help me with some of these names, Julia, but that is Christian Zugel, and co-skippered by Johnny Mordaunt. They've taken line honors in the West-East Transatlantic Race 2025 in an elapsed time of 07 days, 15 hours, 29 minutes, and 10 seconds. The crew included Christian Zugel, Johnny Mordaunt, Al Fraser, Andrew McLean, Campbell Fields, talk about some great names in our sport, Christopher Welch, Edward Myers, Frederick Shanks, Neil McDonald, Nicholas O'Leary, Pete Cummings, Stefano Nava, Stu Bannatyne, and Tristan Seal. I think I got most of those names right, in fact, Julia.
Sounds good to me.
Great group. And this guy is a fairly new owner An enthusiastic one at that. Christian Zugel may be relatively new to offshore racing, but his recent achievements with Choose 2 are nothing short of astounding. Since July 2024, he has won 4 major offshore races overall under IRC. Did I say ORC a minute ago? I think they've also won IRC 0, whatever that class is, the top class.
Yeah.
And logged 22,000 nautical miles in the process.
Wow.
Choose 2 has been the overall winner of the 2024 Rochier Baltic Sea Race, the 2025 RORC Transatlantic Race up from the south, the RORC Caribbean 600, that's from the UK over to the Caribbean, then the RORC's Caribbean 600, and it looks untouchable, and indeed was, for the west to east transatlantic race. Christian said, "This was a phenomenal race, very fast and far beyond my expectations." The owner of Choose 2, we ended up beating the IRC corrected time record by 30 hours.
Wow.
That's something I never imagined when we set out. In this campaign, we've now sailed the same as one lap around the equator, including 2 transatlantic races. We've been pushing hard but smart. Our boat is still in great shape, and our crew is motivated and injury-free. Get this. We could probably go sailing again tomorrow.
Oh, how nice.
That's Louis Habib writing for sail-world.com, and he also writes for the Rourke, and I'm not sure who all else. There they are. You can see them having finished there off the in the Solent. And also Cece has also finished. Here's a blow-up of the, the finished Choose 2 and Cece. But here now is a blow-up of that, of those 10 boats. Choose 2 having finished, Cece having finished in uncorrected, almost 2 days behind. And Cece is an Austrian boat, Austrian flagged boat. Moana is in third, having not yet finished. Oh no, they have finished. No, that's estimated finish. Mm-hmm. And these must be some, because, you can see that the Cece has finished, in fact. And then trailing, Moana, Hound, Hapsa, Hamburg, Ikiji, I don't know how to pronounce it. I'm not going to even try. Ikigai. Escapade 2, High Note, Avanti, and Charisma are the 10 boats. And I think there's one more in that list that maybe I chopped off, or maybe they dropped out. I'm not sure which. So, okay, so much for that race. Bravo Zulu to them. We've been following that since last Wednesday. And Rick Banner is saying, well, maybe Mr. Zugel and his wife aren't on speaking terms, as he obviously is sailing offshore to be far away. Do you think that's true?
No.
I don't think so either. Rick's just having a Friday funny. Ted Ryman, they're back and forth. Man, there's been a lot of back and forth about foiling. We're going to get John Emmett to do a foiled again panel and talk about the merits, Julia, of center foils versus outboard foils, wing foils, and there's a lot of discussion going on as Foiling Week is happening over there at Lake Garda, too, about to wrap up. Mm-hmm. Mark Holland sailing Swede, Rhode Island Rover. Apparently Rhode Island Rover was at the finish line for that race, I believe. Or no, he was at the finish line for the 83 America's Cup. I was on the boat trailing right behind that match on the New York Yacht Club's America's Cup committee, right on the bow, as close as you could get. Huey Treharne, a gentleman's gentleman. Sorry to hear the news, Clay Embley is saying. Yeah, sad day. And lots of other kind notes. And again, the Australian Sailing Australia, as they're now called, and Alistair Murray's president emeritus, they do such a nice job.
They do.
I hope U.S. Sailing, Julia, can. Alistair's offered to Charlie Enright to help, and U.S. Sailing needs some real guidance, and maybe Alistair can put his arm around Charlie. And
I bet he could. But
I think Charlie's more than willing to accept the help.
That'd be great. We should be at least 1/10 as good as the Australians.
Well, back in the day, some of us, without patting ourselves in the back, would like to say we were doing a pretty good job. Harry Anderson before myself, then John Bonds after me, and one or two others.
Right.
With good presidents. We had great presidents and great
boards
of directors in those days. There's a lot of chat going on here, gang, but we appreciate it. We also appreciate John Emmett's regular reportage, and he is back with his coaching corner, Super FOSI John Emmett from Great Britain, and here is his report.
Hi, Tom, Julia, and all the FOSI, and a special thank you to the patrons who keep this show on the road, because of course money is very important. It keeps the world rotating, as they say. And I think one of the topics I want to talk to you about today in John Emmett's Coaching Corner is about stadium events. Now, if we look at a lot of sports, they all have that live action part of them. Now, I forget what the statistic, or maybe it's just a myth, that 99% of supporters have never been to Old Trafford. But at the end of the day, it's very important to have that connection with your fans. Now, we have our own set of issues with sailing, because a natural amphitheatre where you have a lot of high ground, or man-made stadium, would of course block the wind. Looking back at 2012 and the Nove course with that southwesterly wind, it was perfect. Everybody could sit on the big slope and they could watch the racing, and it was really good for everybody, and you had that real involvement. In fact, the sailors on the water said they could hear the shouts of the crowd, so a very special atmosphere. But of course, with that high fortification there, if the wind had been in a northeasterly, it would have been an absolutely nightmare venue, and a real snakes and ladders with gusts and shifts all over the place. But I do feel, to a certain extent, media is a necessary evil, because it's about promoting our sport, and it's social media content that drives the youth and the activities that they're interested in. So I want you to have a little think about the stadium aspect of our sport, and it probably lends itself better to some things like medal racing, match racing, team racing. But actually, how can we promote the existing stadium sailing, and how can we make it better? And with that in mind, a little shout out to all those Brits, or indeed anyone who's thinking about coming to the Portsmouth Sail Grand Prix event. It's going to be an amazing event, and the idea is to try and break some stadium records with the sailing. So if you can come, please do come. I went to Sydney this year, and it was absolutely amazing. On the YouTube, it always feels like there's quite a lot of pause, quite a lot of waiting around. Watching from Shark Island, I was literally running around watching the racing. So we don't have a lot of opportunities to watch sailing live. I remember doing some in a giant swimming pool in Excel, and that was a pretty interesting experiment. But to increase the sport, actually making it easier for people to participate, and also make it easier for people to spectate. So let us know your thoughts in the comments about the idea of stadium sailing. And as always, sail fast, sail safe, keep having fun.
Keep having fun is the key here, Julia.
Absolutely.
Thanks, John. And before we go into your outro slide music, I just want to talk about this for a minute, because I've been thinking a lot about this too, the stadium sailing thing, mostly in the context of the Magic Cup. Mm-hmm. And you know what? John's right. Media is I'm not sure it's a necessary evil. It's necessary. It's a necessary great. I mean, the fact that our sport's getting covered now by media, live television, as we'll do again this weekend down at Balboa Yacht Club. This is no longer magic. This is no longer super expensive. It's doable. And what Andy Rose and I keep saying, we should do a seminar. We should do a live production sometime, and with questions, and let everybody from around the world tune in to see how a yacht club that's been doing this now for 10 years with all volunteers, with virtually, other than capital costs, replacing some equipment and aggregating some equipment. But, other than that, and Andy Rose and a few others have backed that financially. But it's not like you have to spend $100,000 a year plus, as some clubs do, to televise various things. Yeah. And not the millions that SailGP. Okay, SailGP is a professional, full-on, high-end deal. But let's go back to stadium sailing. What we can't do, in my opinion, is let stadium sailing ruin the sport for the sake of having up close and personal viewership. I mean, you, Julia, you and I sat at St. Francis Yacht Club and watched SailGP here a couple months ago. Right. And San Francisco is the ideal stadium if the wind's blowing out of the west or the east, but it rarely does. That means the wind is blowing parallel to the shore. You're sitting there on the shore. The shore is not really interfering with the wind. It's coming from under the bridge, more or less, and from the west, and they're sailing up and down the shore and the city front, and it's fabulous. Okay, it's a little shifty. The thing that makes stadium sailing in San Francisco Bay a little weird is the current. But, that some people say that just adds a little more challenge
Of course.
to the whole thing. Now, Weymouth was great as long as, as John said in his piece, as long as the breeze is blowing out of a certain direction. And that's true unfortunately, for just about any stadium sailing, including San Francisco. This year for SailGP, remember we had a southerly. A good bit of that.
That's correct.
On Sunday, was it? On the second day, which meant the teams were starting way out. Well, they're starting out in the bay anyway. And then they're coming in on that reach. Okay, that's okay. But when there's a southerly in San Francisco Bay and they're having to beat into the beach, sailors call the shoreline the beach, whether it's a rocky or a beach. If the breeze is, like in Naples, is onshore, it's not so interesting. And if you're trying to put the racing up close to shore for the purpose of spectators watching medal races at the Olympics, and it ruins the quality of the races or makes them so short that it's all a starting fest, and after that you don't have it. If you have a bad start, there's no chance of catching up. So I would argue that, as I think I saw several comments here, where was it here? Was it Vanero? I thought, let me go back and look in the comments. He said, yeah, get yourself a chair. Yeah, there he is. Rick Banner saying Castle Hill, Newport, and the great lawn in front of New York Yacht Club's Harbor Court facility. But just go out to Castle Hill, have a large screen television set up. You can see the racing out, out in the middle of the ocean, because you're going to watch it on TV anyway. And these days, Julia, you can watch it on your phone. Wherever you are, you can watch it in don't be driving around and watching it on your phone, although some people do that, me included.
Yeah.
Not only at the stop signs, though. But, you're going to watch it on your phone. You're going to watch it on your computer. You're going to watch it on your TV. And you're not going and even if you're out on the water, like the spectators this weekend down at Balboa Yacht Club, they're going to be in their boats, and they kind of look out there, and they're out there celebrating the whole, beautiful weather that we're going to have, 75 degrees both days, Saturday and Sunday.
Wow, good.
And they're watching it on their phones.
Yeah.
Anyway, listening to Andy Rose and Matt Whitfield and
you.
Well, and the other croutons that are commentating. So this needs a lot more thought. And John's right. It's an important part of our sport, but don't let stadium racing ruin the racing. Yeah. Say that again, Julia.
Don't let stadium sailing ruin the racing.
Exactly. So we need to talk about this here on this show some more and raise all of your thoughts as well. John Emmett, Coaching Corner, has got us thinking yet again. John Emmett Sailing, get to the front of the fleet. And as always, we like to say at the end of this segment that we've got to continue to put the pressure on the organizers for Brisbane 2032 to get parasailing reinstated. And there's been a fair bit of discussion among the Super FOSI this week in our chat about some meetings that Alistair, who's in London now, by the way, he's going to meet with David Graham, who's the CEO of World Sailing, and this is one of the topics on his list. He's also going to ask David Graham about the ongoing venue madness in Long Beach. So if any of you have any influence on this or any of these main topics we talk about here, and you have some ideas on how we collectively can take the Sailing Illustrated community and put some pressure, some constructive pressure on people, let's send that along, please. I'll give you a note in a moment.
I love Hamish Ross's thing. The best sailor is the one having the most fun.
Well, that's exactly right. And sailors don't have fun if the courses are being impacted by, trying to make it interesting for spectators. We all just need to be super encouraging. Yes, we do need to be super encouraging, John, but we've also got to be tough and hard. I mean, we got to start to put some real pressure on these people and say, hey, what gives here? John Emmett says, I have a World Sailing meeting at the end of July, but it feels like it's all taking place at a glacial pace. And Blake Middleton's agreeing 100%. Don't let stadium sailing ruin racing. Yeah, Mark Holland, America's Cup World Series in Newport in 2012 was in close. It was up against Fort Adams in a great event. Yes, as long as the wind was out of the southwest or northeast, arguably. But if it's out of the east And it was one of those days. Anyway, drone footage, on the water commentary, and not in some sound booth, half a world away. And
How can they do that?
well, because it saves money. Follow the money. That's how and why they do it. They put people in London at the television production facility, and they watch on a monitor. And the truth is, when you're out on the water, even Andy, Matt Whitfield, myself, we've got a great big monitor in front of us. We're seeing, because you have to talk to the pictures. You have to talk to what Chris Bretschker, the director and producer, what he's putting on the air. There's no point in us looking over here and seeing something going on when everybody watching the TV sees something entirely different. So we've got a big monitor in front of us. We're watching it. And, people argue, well, if you're locked away in a studio sound booth someplace in London, you're still watching the monitor. You can't look around. But that's wrong, because you want to be out on the water. You want to get a feel for what's going on. You want to talk to the competitors when they sail by. You want to see where the patches of wind are and not just rely on your roving boat, your on the water commentator. So it's really much, much better, as Peter Montgomery and the gang did down there in Auckland, I think, is about the last time the commentators, I'm trying to think of in 2007 if the commentators were on the water. It's much better when the TV commentators are out on the water in a proper television boat, as we will be this weekend in Newport Beach.
Am I allowed to still miss Peter Montgomery?
Yes, we all do. You bet. Alex Hayworth, it's 100 production staff going into Ealing Studios every 4 weeks, and the London SailGP office costs Larry $40 million a year.
Oh, my goodness.
He asserts. Mark Holland says, plus, Jobson is getting old and doesn't travel. Well, I don't think that's it. Gary would have loved to have been at the Olympics, for example, this summer. And I've talked to Gary about this extensively. He would have loved to have been at the Olympics in Marseille, but instead he was in Bristol, Connecticut, or no, he was in wherever NBC's got studios in Connecticut, in a sound booth talking to a monitor. And he doesn't, he's very smart and he's very savvy and he does the best he can. And that NBC production won an Emmy, and they all kind of share in that Emmy. Not Gary personally, but they all share in that Emmy. But, it's not the same as being on the water and can see and feel what's going on. Plus, when you're in Marseille and not in Connecticut, you can at night talk to the sailors. You can walk around in the dinghy park. You can walk the docks. Mark Michelson, there is a small possibility of an easterly wave disrupting the diurnal flow, but the dates and venue look good to me. I hope he's talking about Gulf Cup this week. It looks pretty light, 6, 7, 8 knots. Ben Nichols, John's media is superb. I'm embarrassed and appalled. Some of the OnlyFans in the UK don't recognize his wonderful insights. The OFs? Is John doing an OnlyFans channel? I'd pay good money to see John. You know what OnlyFans is, Julia, right? Huh? That's when people get on, charge money for putting up clips of themselves, usually doing things that would get a finger wag.
Oh, yeah.
Or more from you.
Well, no wonder I don't know about it.
Of course you don't. Jody Shields, believe me, it's horrible being disconnected from the venue while commentating. You cannot get a feel for the racing. Spot on, Jody.
He knows.
He does, because he's had to do both. The Aussie 18, now there's another good example. Lance Burke. It was nice to see you last night, Lance, over at the YC. The Aussie 18 commentary from the water is very good. Exactly. You don't have Peter Shipway in a Channel 9 or Channel 7 studio someplace in Sydney. He's out there on the water, on the TV boat, following those Aussie 18s, or when he's doing Sydney Hobart, watching the stuff. I guess he's out on the water for Sydney Hobart. OFs has not only fans. Get with it, Ben Nichols. It means only fans, not old farts. Direct Banner says OF is old flatulence. I think John Emmett should do an OnlyFans. And maybe, he'd do it with Lily.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, these guys, I'm digressing now, Julie, because we sit here and we beg for a few dollars a month, and we appreciate very much the support, but we, basically have the tin cup out, looking for a little donation. These kids, and I don't know what's going to do to them for the rest of their lives, because it may ruin their reputation forever, but because what goes on the internet stays on the internet.
Forever.
Witness this show.
Yeah.
But these kids are going online and they're putting up a bespoke, a little 20-minute, 10-minute, 5-minute, 30-second video, and it's basically sex or it's teasing sex. And they're making, in some cases, thousands, tens of thousands a month. Some kids are making more than that. And I mean kids, they're in their teens, they're hopefully over 18.
Yeah.
But they're in their late teens, early 20s, maybe even up to 30 in some cases. And it's porn, but they're not paying a studio and they're not having to, half of it goes away to middlemen and women.
Right.
They're producing it themselves, putting it up on a website, and people are paying huge money. OnlyFans. Maybe that's what we should do, Julia. We could have an AARP, American, what's that stand for? Association of Retired People. We could do our own OnlyFans right here in Studio B.
Oh, we're all right. I have the set.
And we have the set all done. Gordon Smith, I will not pay to see Tom pleasuring himself in his boxer shorts, even with the banjo. Well, you never know who would, though, Gordon. I'm sure you wouldn't. You're smarter than that. And Ryman wants to know, how come I know so much about OnlyFans? Well, I'm an online denizen here. I've got to know about stuff. And yes, Blake Middleton, we are clearly digressing. Let's get back into the show. I got a flight to catch.
And everybody's waiting breathlessly.
Yeah, they're waiting for this thing. Well, I'm not trying to tease, but that's loud. I got to turn that audio down on the slide. Come within hail. Clark Chapin will remind me it's only one horn, Tom. So there's only one horn there for today's Sailing Illustrated news briefs. A quick way to cover a number of topics. Why is this still, Julia, even an issue? This Crutonic
Follow the
San
money.
Pedro. I'm seeing other people now calling it San Pedro, Peeedro.
Yeah.
Chris Breschker says that'd be Studio D. Not Studio B. Studio P, Chris, for studio porn, I guess. Why is this still even an issue? Why is San Pedro even still in consideration? And apparently it still is. But this guy takes a lion's share of the blame, and then whatever else, follow the money, is going on behind the scenes. This is this guy we keep telling you about, Tim McCosker, who is on the LA City Council from the 15th District, which includes San Pedro. This from an online website covering the LA games called Torched, and it's quite a good website, actually. Tim McCosker's face nearly matched, thank you, the burgundy curtains behind him. He had taken the floor at the Van Nuys City Hall, LA City Hall, last Friday. This is back in whenever it was, March, just before his fellow Los Angeles council members voted to approve the venue plan for the 2028 Olympic and Paralympic Games, which, by the way, had sailing done and dusted in Long Beach.
Right.
But this guy stands up, and according to him, LA28 had made one grievous error in this venue plan. Sailing, which was slated for the city of Long Beach, should have been slated for the LA City neighborhood of San Pedro in his district, no surprise. Now, he said, LA28 officials had to fix what he called a mistake, and he was furious. I was surprised he didn't have a stroke. He was red in his face and, "Show your work," he shouted. "We've seen nothing, absolutely nothing," he yelled. Instead of some back room and a couple of bros making this decision somewhere, let's do something for the sport.
In San Pedro Harbor.
Yeah, right. As if he knows anything about the sport. He's a non-sailor, I've checked. Sailing was moved out of the city early on. In the original bid, sailing, this is this Torched website writing, sailing was slotted for San Pedro, described as a, quote, popular tourism destination. Yeah, right. It's the port of LA and a prison on Terminal Island, consisting of a public promenade and a big parking lot is what this public promenade is, and walking paths, acres of open space, parking lot, and scenic views of the port. I'm sorry to editorialize, but I can't help myself. But after LA won the games, Olympics organizers relocated sailing to Long Beach's Belmont Pier. The reason given, the winds had literally shifted. There's another article.
From one year to another.
Yeah, right. In 2017, McCosker's predecessor, Joe Buscaino, promised an, quote, aggressive and persistent lobbying effort, unquote, to bring sailing back to San Pedro. Buscaino, get this, is now a managing partner of a lobbying firm that represents LA28. Who's making the backroom deals now, this website asks. But even LA28 seemed to be having second thoughts lately, according to McCosker, he asserts, who said the organizing committee approached the Port of LA as recently as last November to conduct another wind analysis. San Pedro checks a lot of other boxes that would make it a better choice, McCosker said. Nobody else says it, except the past Commodore and maybe the current Commodore of the LA Yacht Club, who are right there in that basin. Like capacity for more spectators and the ability to use existing port amenities. But two sailing experts this website talked to, the writer I spoke with, said Long Beach was clearly the better venue. It's home to the U.S. Sailing Center, an Olympics training facility, which the IOC tends to favor. And they can't imagine this move being approved. As one told me, quote, if you're coming to L.A. for a regatta, you're doing it in, ta-da, Long Beach, airport code LGB. That's the world-class facility with the organization, culture, and infrastructure, as everybody knows who knows anything about our beloved sport. And that is the venue. It is the correct venue. That is the pier in Belmont Shores in Long Beach. And if you have any ideas to affirm LGB, not lesbian, gay, and bi, but the airport code for Long Beach, send us an email, sailingillustrated@gmail.com, because this is just taking too long and is worrying to a lot of us. I still think they're going to split it. They're going to try to be, what's the word, Solomon-like, and put the boards that is the windsurfers and the kites off the beach in Long Beach.
Providing they first pay for it.
Well, we'll come to that in a second, but if they split it and then put the dinghies in the Port of LA, it will be a disaster. It will be hugely more expensive. They have to secure that Port of LA for the Olympic security. I mean, you're not going to bring the Israeli athletes into the Port of LA without huge security. You're already going to have it in Long Beach because they got other Olympic venues there.
Yeah.
You can't do that. And then the poor teams that have got, I mean, not poor financially, but the poor old teams, unfortunate teams, are going to have weather people and managers and trainers going back and forth or double up on number of people supporting both venues, which, as the crow flies, is not that far, as we've said on this show. But to get by car across a bridge, which is into the Port of LA, which is sad. In fact, they've scheduled it for a major repair.
Yeah.
And the traffic at that time, it's ridiculous, absurd. And as Mark Michelson said, there are no left shifts, and he's our weather guru, as most of you will know, Mark Michelson up in Idaho these days. But there are no left shifts in Hurricane Gulch, as it's called in San Pedro. The East Harbor, Long Beach have far more interesting wind patterns. Thank you, Mark.
Blake agrees with it.
Middleton, yeah, he agrees. Exactly right, Mark. Ted Ryman, as long as you don't ask me to do a TTTT, Ted's terrible, trashy trollops. Oh, they're back and forth on. Where the mines are in the gutter, Julia?
Well, I don't know.
In any event, this is the place to do it. If you've got any ideas, sailingillustrated@gmail.com, send it to us. Julia and I both monitor that email address. And we love it. Besides writing to David Graham, and Alistair, bless his heart, is going to have a meeting with him. John, I think, is trying to get a meeting with him as well. And I know what the problem is. They're afraid to be too assertive, that is world sailing, with the IOC, because they're saying they don't want the IOC. Well, you guys are troublemakers. We're going to kick you out of the Olympics for good. That's what everybody's worried about. And instead,
we're a legacy event.
Well, that's what a core event, a legacy event, as Paul Henderson always said. You got to go in there and make yourselves known politely but firmly, and then they'll respect you.
Right.
And you'll have a much better chance of winning the day. Send your ideas to us, and we'll see if we can get this right. As Jody Shields says, sailing needs to get this right. We cannot afford to put on a bad show with horrible racing conditions to the Olympic viewership. We as a sport need to look great on TV. Absolutely, totally right. And John Emmett says he is, in fact, meeting with Scott Douglas, who's the director of comms for World Sailing. Mark keeps referring to East Harbor, meaning the Long Beach Harbor. The water quality in the East Harbor is also far better and mostly devoid of the freighter, diesel, and bilge issues found in the West Harbor. Walk softly and carry a big hiking stick. Last word to Rick Banner. Well said, Rick. Now, one more thing. SailGP has just put out their schedule for next year, as many of you will know, and that schedule does not have LA on it. In fact, they don't have San Francisco on it either. Part of that is a money issue. Part of that is because San Francisco doesn't have a lot of money to throw around for events, and Larry wanted it here, so he got it here for a number of years. But Russell has had to spend way more money on putting the event on up here, I'm sure, than he did get from the city or otherwise. And down in Long Beach, and Port of LA rather, where they've had 2 SailGPs, the LA people are trumpeting that fact. Oh, even SailGP comes here because it's better. No, SailGP went there because it was less expensive and they got a little more money from the Port of LA than they could get out of Long Beach. And that's the only reason they were there. I have that on good authority from a number of people down in both parts of the both ports. And nonetheless, both of those regattas were crap. The SailGP regattas in LA were crap. They're trying to run them inside the breakwater, and it was shifty, and it was constrained, and it was just awful. Surely the success of 84 should be enough to confirm Long Beach. Yes, Hamish Ross. But some people are saying, yeah, but we had it here in LA in 32, which I said, as I reported on the Tuesday show, but they had problems even then. And there were only 4 classes, and one of them was run inside the breakwater. And that was that class called what was it called? Started with an S? Can't remember now.
I don't know.
Not the Star, but the other class that was a Newport Harbor boat. In any event, SailGP is coin operated. SF in March was a really, yes, good point, coin operated. Good point, Fog Machine. Running SailGP here and anything other than, Snowbird. Thank you, John Emmett. That was run inside the breakwater in LA in 32, and they could only run a limited number of races because either there wasn't enough wind or it was too crotonic. You can't block a huge harbor, one of the biggest harbors in the world, ships going in and out and security, and man, the snowbirds. Thanks, everybody. SailGP, their calendar is out. I don't know. There are some people hoping that some other venues will still get stuck in, but I don't see how. Regardless, San Pedro has been dropped from SailGP's 2026 schedule. And while we're on SailGP and doing media, doing just short form stuff here comes the next event in 3 weeks' time. Not in Plymouth, but in Portsmouth. Artist's rendition. I mean, even the people in the stands are watching it on large screen TVs. There you can see them. Next SailGP event, buy your tickets now, Portsmouth, 19th and 20th of July, so just in 3 weeks' time. Another good point here by Dogzilla Monster, up, a.k.a. Stingray up in Seattle. Skipping the U.S. West Coast is about logistics. It makes sense after Sydney to go to Rio. Yeah, they're in the Southern Hemisphere. Then once they're in Rio, to go up the East Coast to New York and Halifax. And I think it's, yes.
Because it's so close?
Well, not close, but coming back to the West Coast and then going to Rio as they were planning to do this year, excuse me,
Yeah.
That's a little much.
It is.
And John Emmett's reporting that Portsmouth is aiming to be the largest stadium event. I'm hoping to do some interviews. Yes. Bill Wingrove's not a big fan of SailGP, but a lot of people are, and that's why we continue to cover it here. Also, well, let me back this up. I got a report here from the New Zealand Herald. They are celebrating the return of SailGP to Auckland as it was part of this announcement, because the America's Cup's not going there, because the Royal New Zealand Yacht Squadron is absolutely crotonic. The event should have been Auckland. They hosted great events there in 2000, 2003, and then again in 2021. Those were great events. People in the land of the long white cloud and the city of sails know our beloved sport. It's a great venue, great sailing. That's where the America's Cup should have been, but at least SailGP is coming back per this nice video from the New Zealand Herald today.
SailGP, staying in Auckland, will be making waves in the city of Sails again next year, with confirmation that the regatta will be back on the Hauraki Gulf on February 14th and 15th. So start booking your flights. It'll be the second event of 12 on the calendar and the last of 4 New Zealand events that were promised when the competition launched. Liv Mackay is a strategist for the Black Foils, joins us this morning for reaction. Great news.
Yeah, hi, thanks for having me on. Very exciting time, actually. I also heard about it pretty recently, so I think, yeah, it's so cool to be back, and it's definitely the best event on the calendar, so really looking forward to it.
And what do you know, how do you feel about the pressure performing in front of Kiwi fans, you know, especially given the success of the Black Foils?
Yeah, I think SailGP is such a unique league, and that every event is really different. It has its different challenges. So I think with Auckland, we definitely had a tricky event this year, and we really want to come back out firing. I mean, the home crowd was absolutely insane. So I think we really want to go back out there, win at our home event, but also just, you know, have a bit more of a positive sailing experience there, and really, you know, kind of enjoy the crowd a bit more, where we don't have as many challenges.
And this season, you guys, you're heading to Portsmouth in the UK, July 20th, 21st, and currently in third with 44 points, just 2 behind the leader Spain, and in second place Australia. How do you reckon you'll go in Portsmouth?
Yeah, it's going to be really looking forward to actually the whole European block. We've got a lot of back-to-back racing coming up, which I think really gets a lot of momentum with the team. It's really nice to be with each other all the time and build on the last races. So looking forward to getting into Portsmouth, and then we do a few European leagues up here. But the points are very tight at the top, which I mean is always really exciting. That's what we're here for, and yeah, I think that's quite an interesting top 3 given last season's results. So I think we really want to, you know, keep fighting and get at the top of the table coming into the end of the season.
Yeah, you're close enough. You can do it. I've got faith, Liv. Hey, what is it? Can you? Because I'm a bit ignorant, but what is a strategist? What is that? What do you do?
Great question. I mean, my role changes a lot, to be honest, depending on the day. So just as you'd think of, you know, business strategy or anything, it's looking at all the information kind of presented to you, and then putting together a plan of what you think will be best for the given wind conditions, the given course, you know, the given situation. So that's predominantly my role, and then you might often see there comes down to 5, 4, or 3 people on board, the lighter it gets, and I actually go forward on the boat and end up grinding. So it's quite a dynamic role, and one that's very, very fun.
Yeah, it sounds like pretty much everything, bit of everything, Liv, which is great. Lovely to have you on the program, and best of luck for Portsmouth. Great news that we're going to be seeing some more sailing action here in Auckland as well. Liv Mackay with us, Black Foils strategist and just basically all round.
That's what happens when you let a newspaper guy do television. He's got a great voice, but Liv Mackay, one from that great sailing family, and just a peach of a person. She's a great gal and great sailor. I even go forward and grind when it gets light. Hard to explain it. Strategist, roll and sail, GP. Finally, we go out to Block Island. We've been covering the Block Island Race Week. Storm Trisal's biennial every other year. It's been going on since 1965. I'm not going to go into great details because it's wrapping up today. And they've got the ORC, Offshore Racing Congress North American Championship. First time that's been held in North America. Very close racing. If you go look at the leaderboard, I won't bore you with that now. We'll update it on Tuesday, but they've had some very close racing, very good, mostly good conditions out at Block Island, just off of Rhode Island's south coast. And we'll give you more on Tuesday. And then I said finally, but I've got one more here. The event we've been covering in Germany, Keeler Woche, they're sending out 2-3 videos a day. And it's a fire hose of media, but I think I've got the latest and best video as a summary for what's been going on in the last few days at Kiel Week.
A mix of sun and clouds with cool temperatures on day 7 of Kiel Week. The sailors enjoyed a variety of good to challenging sailing conditions today, with winds between 16 and 20 knots. The race committee scheduled 4 races for the ILCA 6 Open racing today. 119 boats have registered for the ILCA 6 Open class. A total of over 350 ILCAs will be competing at Keeler Woche. In terms of boat technology, the ILCA 6 is the same boat as used at the Men's World Championship. 5.7 square meters of sail area, so a little bit less than the ILCA 7, which has 7.08 square meters of sail area. Young sailors use the open class as a stepping stone to the ILCA 7, while women often use it for training against potentially stronger men for their Olympic discipline. In addition, the extra races in the second part of Kiel Week offer the opportunity to experience more big fleet racing days. Most of the frontrunners in this competition have already raced in the first half of Kiel Week in the men's and women's competitions. Today in Kiel, strong gusts of 16, gusting to 25 knots by the end of play. Last day of qualification in 2 groups, blue and yellow, before the final round starts tomorrow. Another good day for Weka Banuband, the former Optimist and ILCA 4 world champion from Thailand, who after 2 first places on day 1 of competition, finished 7th, 3rd and 5th today. This ultimately earns him 2nd place in the overall standings, just 3 points behind the leader. Semen Kashchina, who recently finished 3rd in the ILCA 6 World Championships, also came through the day very well. A 2nd, a 3rd and a 10th place earns the Ukrainian sailor 3rd place on the leaderboard, just 8 points behind the leader. Benedikt Hader from Hungary, who achieved top results in the blue group today, holds the overall lead at the start of the final round. There are 5 final races in the ILCA 6 Open program in Kiel, taking place tomorrow and Sunday.
How can a 50-year-old boat, the ILCA, the Laser, provide such good racing and be so telegenic and attract the media attention that it does? And all of these great sailors from around the world, a 50-year-old boat. It's time to kick this boat out of the Olympics, Julia. It's too old.
And too popular.
It doesn't have any foils. What is wrong with us? What is wrong with us? And look at the drones. Good point, Dogzilla Monster, a.k.a. Stingray up in Seattle. And the witness, the only witness protection program is the Sailing Anarchy Witness Protection Program. He's a denizen of the Sailing Anarchy forums. What's the plural of forum? Fora. And he's afraid some of those Sailing Anarchy anarchists will come to his house in Seattle and scalp him, I think. Because Bruce Kirby was wise. Well done, Blake. We all love the ILCA. Ben Nichols is saying his daughter's a big ILCA sailor. And of course, John Emmett is and wishes he were there too. And I love the ILCA. We still, on our little lake in Michigan, the biggest class, after all these years, you got the 18 and 19 footer, the Flying Scot in the inner lake, and you've got the Sunfish, but everybody, regardless of the other classes they sail, the Sea Scow or this, tell me what, they all want to get into the ILCA on Tuesday nights, or it's now Thursday nights, and race, and they get big turns out. See what I did there? Turns out, Julia.
Turns out.
Just to impress you.
Oh, I'm proud of you.
Oh, they just need batteries. Yes, they need batteries and push buttons, don't they, Mark Holland, on the ILCA? Keeler Woche 2025. What a terrific event. Come within hail. That segment is done. And I will move on here to our main segment of the day. But before that, I got to do this day in history, Julia. Okay, let's do this day in history. Then I'm not teasing the America's Cup news, but I'm still. I promised people we would pad it and get it later in the show because people wanted to come on and watch it live. And it's now what time? It's 14:09 here. So on the East Coast, it's 1709. They're getting home from dinner in London. There were some people in England that wanted to see it. We're keeping Ryman up down in Cape Town, where it's a little after 2300 his time, and so on. But we wanted to get people up in Sydney. They're now 7 in the morning in Sydney and 9 in the morning in Auckland. We'll get to that in a moment. Thank you. We do this every Tuesday and Friday, as most of you will know, at 1300 Pacific, year-round, that daylight time, standard time, whenever it changes. Julia, what's happening today? Blake Middleton got it right. 27th of June, 1898. Here's your first clue.
Yeah.
That's a yacht, a fishing boat named Spray from Canada. The Decrepit, it was described, 37-footer, 11.2 meters, fishing boat. Hamish Ross has got it. Slocum, he says, belonging to this gentleman, Joshua Slocum, who was a Canadian, 1844, and he died. They're not quite sure when he died. He was lost at sea, and they're not sure when and where, but circa 1909. And it was on this date, on the 27th of June, 1898, that Joshua Slocum arrives back in Newport, becomes the first man to sail single-handed. He did stop. It wasn't nonstop, but he sailed single-handedly around the world, and to great acclaim. How unfortunately it was the Spanish-American War had taken the media's attention, but on April 24th of 1895, at the age of 51, he departed Boston in his tiny sloop Spray, a 36-foot, almost 37-foot gaff-rigged sloop oyster boat, and sailed around the world single-handed. In his famous book, Sailing Alone Around the World, which probably half of us on here have read, maybe more, now considered a classic of travel literature, he described his departure in the following manner. I had resolved on a voyage around the world, and as the wind on the morning of April 24th, 1895 was fair, at noon I weighed anchor and set sail and filled away from Boston, where the Spray had been moored snugly all winter. The 12 o'clock whistles were blowing just as the sloop shot ahead under full sail. A short board was made up the harbor, meaning a tack, was made up the harbor on the port tack. Then coming about, she stood to seaward with her boom well off to port and swung past the ferries with lively heels. A photographer on the outer pier of East Boston got a picture of her as she swept by, her flag at the peak, throwing her folds clear. He writes so nicely. A thrilling pulse beat high in me. My step was light on deck in the crisp air. I felt there could be no turning back, and that I was engaging in an adventure, the meaning of which I, at least he, thoroughly understood.
Good for him.
And this is from What's Happening Newport. That's the name of this website. But more than 3 years later, on June 27th, 1898, he arrived back in Newport, having circumnavigated the world a distance of more than 46,000 miles. Slocum's return went almost unnoticed. The Spanish-American War, which had begun 2 months earlier, dominated the headlines. And after the end of major hostilities, many American newspapers published articles describing Slocum's amazing adventure. As Chris Exley is saying, such beautiful prose. Fog Machine says, yeah, the other hand was holding his iPhone. Really well written, beautiful stuff. Hang your head in shame, Alistair Murray is saying, if you haven't read it. Good point, Mr. President.
I should reread it.
I have his book in my car, Ryman says. I wonder what else he has in his car. You know, Ryman's one that might actually do OnlyFans. I'm not saying that he's doing it currently, but he's one that might be persuaded to do an OnlyFans on his motorcycle with some of those cute things that he ferries around in Cape Town. Come on, Ted. Back to our This Day in History in a serious matter. This day in history, the 27th of June, 1898. Okay, Julia, it's time for the America's Cup. Can't put it off any longer. What's going on? The AC-38 Cup date. As you know, the venue has been specified by the defender, and the defender has the right under the deed of gift to specify the venue, but who under the deed of gift specifies the date? The challenger.
Mm-hmm.
The challenger. Who is the challenger? Well, in this case, it's the challenger of record, which is the Royal Yacht Squadron. And who is the Royal Yacht Squadron and others hired as their lawyers, and why? I told you on the show the other day that it's Hogan Lovells. This law firm has been retained. That was some news that we revealed here, thanks to several of our sources around the world. Hogan Lovells is one of the world's largest international law firms. The firm was formed in 2010 through the merger of U.S. firm Hogan and Hartson and the UK firm Lovells. The merger created a global law firm with a significant footprint in both they're not sponsoring this segment, let alone show, let alone segment, in both the US and Europe. Today, the firm has more than 2,700 lawyers, including 800 partners in over 47 offices across the world and a dozen in the US alone. They do a lot of sports, Julia, sports litigation. We told you on the show Tuesday that one of our normally highly reliable sources said from a normally reliable source, this is me putting this in a note to somebody else, quote, bad last handful of days regarding the protocol. Sounds like Grant Dalton told some of the challengers, including Ernesto Bertarelli of the Société Nautique Genève, a.k.a. Alinghi, to F off. Now the likelihood of a deed of gift match is extremely high, and the litigation is coming down the pipeline in a few weeks, if not days.
Okay.
And why would that be? Well, as you see, as the promo for this show is this document, which most of you will probably have never heard of such a document. It's called the Assignment and Acceptance Agreement. And this is the one promulgated after they lost the cup. That is, after Golden Gate Yacht Club lost the cup in 2017. Remember, they lost in Bermuda to whom? To the Kiwis, to the Royal New Zealand Yacht Squadron. Mm-hmm. Well, why, you will ask, is this assignment and acceptance not dated until April 20th, 2024, 7 years later?
Yes.
Now, not many people have seen this document, and I was tipped off actually months ago, that in fact, this document had not been promptly signed after Golden Gate Yacht Club lost the cup to the Kiwis, and other teams were trying to get the Royal New Zealand Yacht Squadron to sign the assignment and acceptance. What is that? Well, after New York lost the cup in 1983, they drafted a document, the lawyers did, and they said to the Royal Perth Yacht Club, before we give you the trophy, before we pronounce you the winner, we are going to require you to sign this assignment and acceptance, which in a nutshell says you have to proceed under the deed of gift, and you will truly and faithfully proceed under the deed of gift. And then we'll give you the cup. You become the trustee of a New York trust. Why a New York trust? Well, that's paragraph 4 right at the end. And I'll tell you about paragraph 4 in a minute. But first, I'm going to tell you about some commentary from Richard Gladwell that has come in this morning. Have you seen a copy of the latest protocol? In the previous edition, the way I read it, the teams could start two-boat testing in AC-40s as the LEQ-12s. Well, let's don't get into that at the moment. From July 1st, next week. If these guys don't get, meaning the Royal Yacht Squadron and the Royal New Zealand Yacht Squadron, don't get a deal done very quickly, they're going to trip over themselves, given there is a cap on the sailing days in AC-40s in test mode. The way to get the whole thing moving is to take out the test days limitation completely. This is Richard getting down in the weeds all too quickly, but these are good points. It is not going to save any serious money, and there's nothing that creates more urgency than seeing your opposition out training while the rest are still quibbling and lawyering over some arcane view of what the rules could be. Kind regards, Richard Gladwell. Mm-hmm. And then I wrote back to him and said, may I use that? And I said, anonymously or attribute it. And he said, you can use it and attribute it. Anyone who follows Formula One knows that cost-cutting measures invariably cost more money. So what does this all have to do with the assignment? That's Richard Gladwell, who, of course, is of FOSI and writes. He's the New Zealand editor of sail-world.com. Well, what this means is that Nero is fiddling, meaning Grant Dalton, while Rome is burning. He's got the big three, Alinghi, meaning Ernesto Bertorelli and the Société Nautique Genève, the New York Yacht Club, and the Challenger Record, which is the Royal Yacht Squadron, DBA Ben Ainsley, who now has funding.
Oh.
Look at that. Look at the do that again. Say that again. Look at the expression on your face. Oh. He now has funding, one hears, but he doesn't have any boats. So when they filed to challenge, they did the hip pocket challenge in Barcelona as the Kiwis were crossing the finish line to win yet again, they said, well, we'll challenge and then we'll get a protocol together and we'll decide the details. But they named the boat and the length of boat as a 75-footer, but that was it. Nothing else, apparently. And now they're trying to agree a protocol to agree all the other stuff, and they haven't been able to agree it. And as we told you some weeks ago, the Royal New Zealand Yacht Squadron wrote to the Royal Yacht Squadron and told them, hey, get this protocol done or you're going to get the flick. Well, guess what? The big three challengers have said, sorry, Charlie, you are going to get the flick if you don't honor the assignment and acceptance, which the Royal New Zealand Yacht Squadron, agreed to back in 2024, last year, before the 2024 match in Barcelona, because they were dragging their feet. They finally agreed to it. And I will now go back to that and show you the fourth paragraph of that document, which says, it's hard to read. I'm sorry, because it's a PDF of a PDF, I think, and it's Crutonic.
Yeah.
But here is the fourth paragraph. Applicable law. The parties hereto, that is the Golden Gate turning the cup over to the Royal New Zealand Yacht Squadron. The parties hereto further agree that the trust under which the cup is held, having been created under the laws of the state of New York, and having been amended as aforesaid by order of the Supreme Court of the state of New York, the terms and conditions of the deed of gift shall be governed by and construed in accordance with such laws, and any proceeding to be for the amendment or interpretation of such terms and conditions shall be brought before the courts of the state of New York, which means if there's any dispute which can't be adjudicated, it goes to 60 Center Street in New York, which is where the cup was adjudicated in 2010, and before that in 1988. So what's going on? The challengers are lawyering up. They are fed up with Grant Dalton trying to stuff down their throats a protocol that the Challenger Record won't agree to. That is the Royal Yacht Squadron and Ben Ainsley. He said, sorry, I'm not going to agree to this. And they're lawyering up, and they're headed to the court in New York, or so one hears, to 60 Center Street. And Julia, it might come very quickly. Rather than delaying the cup, what might happen is they may go and ask the court, because remember, who gets to name the dates? The challengers. The Challenger Record. And what's the default timeline in the deed of gift? 10 months notice of challenge. And these guys may go to the court at 60 Center Street and say, we'd like to have an America's Cup match in 10 months' time. We'll use our boats. Yeah, if you want to use the AC-75s, we'll use our boats, or we'll build a new one. But by the way, we're now under the deed of gift because we haven't agreed to your silly protocol. And in the silly protocol, you tried to say that the boats could be built anywhere in the world. Well, sorry, Charlie, meaning sorry, Mr. Dalton, but the deed says the boats must be built in the country of the club that they represent. Where, Mr. Dalton, were your boats built? And the parts, where were they built? Some of the parts were built in Italy. Some of the parts were built in Spain. Sorry, Our boats are compliant, or we can make them compliant quickly. Can you make your boat compliant quickly if we use the same boats?
And if you can't use your boat.
Exactly. So this has become almost overnight a very challenger. The challengers have done a very clever thing here, I think. And if nothing else, they are playing Donald Trump, and they've got a big cudgel. They now have got a big lever over the heads of the incredibly crutonic Royal New Zealand Yacht Squadron and Mr. Dalton. Because if they do go to this court, which I remind you is the New York State Supreme Court building, also the New York County Courthouse, is located at 60 Center Street on Foley Square in Civic Center neighborhood of Manhattan in New York City. It houses the civil and appellate terms of the New York State Supreme Court, yada, yada, yada. The point is that which I showed you in that assignment acceptance, it says the courts of New York will handle this. And if you want to appeal, you can appeal it. It's a decision of this court. And if that goes to the appellate division of the same court, and if you want to appeal that, it goes to the State Court of Appeals up in Albany, New York, all in New York. Grant Dalton's trying to get all of this litigation moved to New Zealand. At one time, he was trying to do that. In fact, not going to happen.
I can't do that.
Not going to happen. It's going to end up at 60 Center Street in Manhattan, just as it did in 1988 and 2010, and now again probably in 2025.
And you were there.
I was there for both of those, won both of those in 88 and 2010, and it's not a good thing. I don't wish it on the sport. I don't wish going to court on this current cup. I don't wish it on Mr. Dalton or even the crutonic Royal New Zealand Yacht Squadron. But the point is now that the challengers are fed up. They're not going to accept a protocol forced down their throats with no negotiation by Mr. Dalton saying, here, take it or leave it. And if you don't come, we will, what Mr. Dalton is saying, if you don't come, I'll make the French, who he's probably paying for, that team, to make them, help them come to the Cup, this next edition of the Cup. I'll make them the challenger record, or I'll make the Italians the challenger record, which most people say over his dead body because he had such a bad relationship in 2021 in Auckland with Mr. Patrizio Bertelli.
Yeah.
And as Mark Holland says, that'll never happen. Well, we'll see. I think the challengers, if they're just by threatening this, which they have done, and they're going to, I think,
and
move.
It's real.
It's real.
Yeah.
I think they're going. I don't know for sure. And I've talked to people in the last day and a half. I've talked to people in New Zealand, in London, in New York, not talked to anybody in the Italian team or the French team. I'm trying to think of it. Oh, and also to people, also to people in Barcelona. Royal Yacht Squadron Limited filed a challenge letter they could not meet. Dalton will sail over the racecourse and end AC 3820. No, he won't, Alex Hayworth, because there is not, if it ends up being a sail over the course, it's going to be a deed of gift match, and Mr. Dalton can't meet the terms of a deed of gift match, the literal terms of the deed of gift. Besides, it's going to all end up in court, and who knows what the court will do. But the court could well enforce, as they did on us, meaning Ernesto and Larry, meaning our two teams in 2010. The court finally said, the next event will be in Valencia, and it'll be in 10 months' time. We'll start the clock, and here we go. And you know what? That's what happened. So you never know. The America's Cup bring lawyers, guns, and money. Alex Hayworth is telling me I'm wrong. Alex, do you want to place a friendly? We'll bet on some bourbon cream here or something.
Yeah.
But this is not going to go well for Mr. Dalton or for the worst trustee in the history of the Cup, the Royal New Zealand Yacht Squadron.
Yeah.
Okay, if anybody's got any quick questions, we'll do it. But again, I got to head to the airport. Not that I'm trying to dodge questions, but Julia, do you have any thoughts or questions about all this?
I just had one, and I gave up.
Okay. Alex is saying that they gave up a dog match in the previous protocol. I'm sorry, Alex. No court is going to hold, and no court in New York is going to say that the that previous protocol of the previous match has any bearing on the current one, because it doesn't. It's not, unless they go into some law, some court of law, and assert that it's a contract, they're not going to be able to do that. The court's going to say, excuse me, the deed of gift is clear. Who's the challenger of record? It's the Royal Yacht Squadron. Have they agreed to anything other than using 75-foot boats? No, they haven't. Do those boats have to be built in the country of the club they represent? Yes. Who names the date? Well, the date starts from the time of the challenge, 10 months' time, and we're going to restart that now because you guys are in dispute. Alex, I'm sorry. I know you're a big fan of Ben and the Royal Yacht Squadron, but it's not going to happen. And that $20 million that they tried to assert in the last protocol is never going to be enforceable in court. It's come up. This is the second or third time somebody's tried to do that.
What's that about?
Well, in the previous protocol, it's a good question, Julia. In the previous protocols, including what we tried to do in 2017, people have tried to use the current event to enforce the wishes of the current defender and or challenger of record on future winners.
Oh, yeah.
Can't do it.
No, that's not.
Alex Hayworth disagrees with me vehemently, and I respect your views, Alex, and we'll have a little. Now, Dogzilla wants to know, Stingray wants to know, why was the Golden Gate Yacht Club letter so late? Well, I am reliably informed it wasn't late. It was the Golden Gate Yacht Club prepared it. I was not involved, remember. I'd resigned as Vice Commodore of Golden Gate before it went to Bermuda when they were in the process of moving it there. I said, here, run it in the States or I'm out of here. So they ran it in Bermuda. Golden Gate lost. I'm reliably informed that Golden Gate prepared that assignment acceptance, which you've seen. In fact, if you go here, I'll play the next slide. If you go look at it, you can see that it was prepared with a different date, a much earlier date, and Royal New Zealand Yacht Squadron refused to sign it until they were forced to sign it on April 20th, 2024, just before the start of this previous AC-37. You can see the typeface doesn't even come close. Somebody cut and pasted a new date on it, and then it was signed by not even the Commodore, by the then Vice Commodore, Gillian Williams, who has in the meantime quit as Commodore of the Royal New Zealand Yacht Squadron. This is a complete and utter fustercluck. I got a flight to catch. Blake loves it when we talk about the America's Cup, right? I'm okay. I planned accordingly to go up to 1,500, and we'll do that. The deed of gift, it keeps on giving. It really, he didn't say it in so few words. That's the America's Cup report. And if anybody has any questions or comments besides Alec Hayworth, we'd certainly discuss them on Tuesday's show. Julie, that gets us to the last leg and happier news. As I was saying at the top of the show, to talk about the Rose Cup, which is taking place as we speak. First day of racing is today. They've had a couple days of clinicking, of coaching before this. That is the esteemed Balboa Yacht Club in Newport Beach. And that is out to the ocean, and that is actually looking to the east. That's a sunrise, not a sunset, which is, the way the coast is down there. It's a bit disconcerting, but the U.S. Youth Match Racing Championship for the Rose Cup, which was not given by Andy Rose. It was given by sailors in Newport Beach in honor of Andy Rose and named after him for all he has done for the Governor's Cup and youth match racing and more. That is taking place today, tomorrow, and Sunday. We'll be broadcasting it live Saturday and Sunday. That is the Rose Cup. It is emblematic of the U.S. Youth Match Racing Championship. For the Rose Cup, it's an invitational event open to young sailors who have reached their 16th birthday, but not their 21st birthday during the calendar year in which the event is held. The championship features world-class coaching. It's one of the few events where there's actually coaching that goes on in addition to just plain old yacht racing.
Before, during, and after?
Well, not so much now. Once they get into the racing, the coaching winds down. They may do some chalk talks at night. But the last couple of days have been a lot of coaching, as you'll hear from Jeffrey Peterson in a moment. The championship features that world-class coaching and great race management and serves as an outstanding training ground for young sailors who are interested in match racing and focused on competing at the next level. In fact, a couple of the winners of this Rose Cup, including Jeffrey and David Wood, have also gone on to win the World Youth Match Racing Championship. So it's a good event here in the U.S. I couldn't find on U.S. Sailing's Croutonic website. Charlie said he's going to get that fixed. I couldn't find the list of skippers, so thanks to Christine Gribben, who sent the list today from the club, took this picture of right out of the sailing instruction. Now, I'm going to read these names because they're getting so precious little publicity. Dylan C., who's from the neighboring Newport Harbor Yacht Club. Freddie Parkin, we've talked about Freddie on this show, and his family, Riverside, Connecticut. He's an early favorite. Probably Dylan C. is too. Gavin Galway from Texas, Harrison Strom from San Diego, Hayden McCready from Texas, James Pine from South Carolina, Noah Stapleton from up the shore at Long Beach, California, Long Beach, or ABYC, I think. And Chian from Irvine, California, not sure which club. And Sienna Nichols of the home Balboa Yacht Club. We've interviewed her on this show as well. Corona Del Mar, she's from California, SoCal. And she's also a favorite. William Stratton, Purdue, California. And the winner of this event will get an automatic invite to the Governor's Cup at the end of this month, which is the big deal. It's the Congressional Cup of Youth Match Racing in the world. So here is young Jeffrey, in fact, our super FOSI anyway, winning the Rose Cup back in 2021 with a stellar crew from the Balboa Yacht Club. Jeffrey has gone on to fame and fortune, not so much fortune, but he's graduated now from Georgetown University, and looks like he's going to work on Wall Street in a real job, but he's coaching and sailing as well. He's also won the Gov Cup twice and the World Youth Match Racing Championship in 2022. And this morning, as I think I said at the top of the show, I called him and said, hey, JP, can you do a quick video? Because I can't find any publicity about this event on the U.S. Sailing website. Tell us what's going on. And he did a one-take, 90-second video as follows.
All right, good morning to FOSI fans, Tom Eamon and friends. This is day one of the Rose Cup. We're here at Balboa Yacht Club with a little bit of unfortunate June gloom out this morning, but we were here racing 2 days of clinic put on by the David Storrs Foundation. David Storrs was an absolute legend of the sport, and he's been super gracious to have a fund set up in his name and his honor to give back to youth match racing. He was a great sailor, friend of mine. I met him back in 2017 when I was at my first U.S. Nationals, and he ended up winning that year, and he was one of those guys that picked up sailing late and fell in love with it late and was out there racing with all of us, and it was, he was an absolute pleasure to compete against. And now, his name is given back to the sport, so we're here now, day one of racing. So we're going to go. These competitors have had 2 days of training with myself and Frankie Dare in the boats. As you can see, they're rigging up, getting ready to tow out. The feedback's been great. The level's been rising, from 2 days ago to now. I think the whole regatta's gotten 100% better. Everyone's boat handling well, and it's going to be a pretty epic week. So we'll stay tuned with more updates, but we hope you come down and join us at Balboa Yacht Club on Saturday and Sunday, where we'll be live streaming the racing. We should be into the quarterfinals on Saturday, and then the semifinals and finals on Sunday. From the Good Ship Audios, the whole Gov Cup TV team will be down here putting the broadcast on, and it's sure to be a special weekend, and we're going to crown a youth national champion. So what's more exciting than that? Stay tuned.
Stay tuned indeed. Jeffrey Peterson, who still hails from the Balboa Yacht Club, even though he's living on the East Coast. By the way, the weather forecast for tomorrow and Sunday is a little light, but otherwise, Julia, we've had 2 days of summer here.
Yeah.
2 days, and it's about to get windy and cold again.
I know.
Right? But I'm going to the warm weather down in Newport Beach as soon as we're done with this show.
I'm jealous.
There's a nice picture of the teams docking out. They get towed out into the Pacific by the race committee boat. Day one of 3 today. And thanks to Christine Gribben for that. And I will be joining Ken Sherb, Andy Rose, and Matt Whitfield, plus our producer and director, Chris Bretschker, out on the Adios for live television on, this is the Gov Cup TV team. Ken Sherb, by the way, I don't know why he painted his hair blonde that year. This is from a couple of years ago, but the kid is fabulous. He's super smart, and he is our spotter. What he does.
He did a great job.
Yes, you've heard us talk about, you've met him. He stayed here, I think, once or twice at the Beach Street Yacht Club, but he is not only a good sailor, but he's up in the front of the boat. We're blabbing away in the back with the big screen, but you're out on the water, and he has got two different big whiteboards on which he's writing the status of all the matches, who's leading in each of the matches.
Because they're contiguous.
We've got 4 or 5 matches going on at once. They start every 5 minutes, I think.
Yeah, right.
And they've got 10 boats, so they got 5 matches, I think, going on at once, or maybe even be 12. I don't know how many teams. He is, yes, Fog Machine. I call him our crack spotter.
Yeah.
And he is the best. Christine Gribben comes out and helps as well, the regatta chairman. So Andy Rose, Matt Woodfield there, along with Ken Sherb, our spotter, and we'll be live tomorrow and Sunday at, I believe, 11:30 PDT, and it'll be on the U.S. Sailing YouTube channel, the U.S. Sailing Facebook page, the Gov Cup Facebook page, and on this Sailing Illustrated Facebook page. I believe that's what we'll do that. And it will be great fun, and I'll be back on Monday to do Tuesday's show here in Studio B with Julia.
Yes.
Which gets us to the last segment here, Julia, your favorite segment, Whiskey Tango
Yes.
Foxtrot. Now, I don't know if this is a real picture or not. It looks Photoshopped to me, but Ted Ryman thought it was real. He sent it. And I don't know whether to just ask you if you think that's real or Photoshopped, or if not, we could have a caption contest. But Ted said, the Swedes are always cheating. We're getting more sail area up high. I'm pretty sure that was Photoshopped. But a nice submission.
Oh, yeah, it is.
From Rhyme. A couple Opti rigs, one on top of another. This was sent in by a guy who normally lurks on the show, Julia. And we really appreciate him sending it in. He's saying, Andrew Watson, who's in Scotland, he's saying there are differences between the UK and the US languages. And in the UK, it's chips. Here in the US, it's fries. And of course, we would say chips, and the UK would say crisps, right? That's what they call potato chips. Airplane is aeroplane, subway is underground, and jail in Great Britain is
Australia.
Australia. And that is Andrew Watson, who is up in Scotland in Great Britain. And he is a member. I'm trying to put yacht club names more and more in the show. And he's a member of the Royal Northern and Clyde Yacht Club up in Helensburgh in Scotland. So thank you for that, Andrew. I know he's watching. He put a comment on. Love the language differences from an Aussie crim. Alistair is saying. An oopie, an uppy opti, Jody Shields is saying. Bring back the double mint. He has a lot of captions coming on here, Julia. This one from Peter Taylor. How salt is used in other states, which is true. Did you know that in Michigan for a while, I kid you not, Joe Holtzman will confirm this, as would Clark Chapin if he were watching, but he's judging.
Yeah.
In Michigan, it was a state policy for a while to salt the roads every chance you got as much as possible. Do you know why? It rusted the cars quicker.
Oh.
And it caused more cars to be bought, built, and hence built in Detroit. But now they've cut back and they're using non-rusting stuff like sand and other things in the wintertime in those states. But how salt is used in California?
Of course.
To make one of your favorite drinks.
Margarita.
Right?
Yes.
Okay, thank you to Peter Taylor for sending that one in. And then finally, we end up with Blake Middleton's. I'm going to use this at the end. I like it. It's a nice way to wrap up the show because we assert, don't we, Julia?
Yes.
That
all the smartest people sail.
And Blake Middleton, thank you for sending that in. Julia, that gets us to the finish line where you like to say.
Yes. Use your ability to get. Like, follow, and share.
There you go. Just read those three words, Julia. Just read those 3 words. You've been at this for an hour and 45 minutes. You're getting tired.
I know. But also, do all 3.
And do all 3. And also, comment, because your comments are welcome, even in replay. We leave them open, which is very rare these days because people troll and say stupid things, but not our FOSI, not our friends of Sailing Illustrated, who also support us via patreon.com/join/Sailing Illustrated. Thank you very much for your support, and thanks to those who give us audio, video, and images, not only regularly, but particularly for today. There were a lot of them, and Jeffrey and Christine Gribben, Jeffrey Peterson, Christine, thank you very much for sending at last minute those submissions from down south at Balboa Yacht Club in Newport Beach. Julia, final thoughts?
No, I think it's going to be several good weeks of sailing, and I look forward to hearing all the rest of the Rose Cup.
Oh, July is going to be a great month. And again, just to confirm our schedule, we will have a show next Tuesday, but not next Friday. And then the following Tuesday, but not the following Friday. So the next 2 Fridays we're off, but we'll do shows on Tuesdays. And then the rest of July is normal until we get the Gov Cup at the end of the month. And then we're doing a bunch of shows, 10 shows in 6 days, as usual, at Balboa Yacht Club for the Governor's Cup. Hope you have a great weekend, Julia. And all the rest of you, we hope you have a great rest of your weekend if you've already started it. We'll see you on Tuesday. In the meantime, sail fast, sail safe, and have fun. Ciao for now.